Hey there, girlfriend. Ingafay here. Super excited to be here with you again today. I wanted to share another one of my coaching girlfriends with you, Jody Maley. She is the owner of the Heart-Centered Entrepreneur Series, where she interviews top leaders in the top 1% to 2% of their current direct sales or network marketing company, and they share their systems and strategies on exactly how they got there. So we're going to talk to her today, and she's going to give us some tricks and tips on how to grow our business. And I'm super excited to share her with you, and we will see you on the other side. Hey there, Jody.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever people are at.
Yes, so we're so excited to talk to you today about how, or really what to do when it comes to when we struggle with motherhood and leadership. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, who you serve, and how you serve them.
Well, thank you for one thing for holding space for me to be here. I am a busy mom and now a grandma. We have 6 kids, 2 his, 2 mine, and 2 together.
Wow.
And I've always had a side business, which has actually been more than a side business. I definitely make more money than my spouses have made over the past, 27 years. So I've been doing this 27 years. I've led leadership teams, developed teams, done sales workshops all across Canada. And so, yes, I am Canadian. And I started when my kids were really young. My youngest was 6 months old when I started my first direct sales business, and my older child was almost 4 at the time. And I really started because I wanted to get out of the house, actually have adult conversations with people. And then I started into leadership about, I would say, 8 months into that company. And then I had to learn skills. I actually had to learn and teach leadership and sales development. So what I was doing naturally, it segued into something different when I actually had to teach it. And then in those first couple of years, I had extreme burnout because as a top leader, I was a regional vice president with that company within 2 or 3 years. And I experienced what a lot of leaders experience, which was burnout. I didn't know how to set boundaries. I didn't know how to use my own authentic sales voice, my own authentic sales leadership style. And so that developed within the next 5 years of that company. And adding in more children, because I started with 2. I went through a divorce, and then I met my new spouse, and he had 2 children. I had my 2, and then we had 2 together. So then it was even more life balance because kids do stuff. Why do they do stuff, right?
Right.
And so it was really balancing being a top leader within my company, driving all the kids to all their sports, and then having the younger 2 as babies. So it even grew into having more balance, but being able to have a lifestyle where my health and my business, it always seemed to be that either one or the other.
Right.
Like this or this. And I really wanted to bring it more this way. So that's my brief story.
Awesome. So you have definitely given us kind of the background for what we're going to talk about today. So when you were trying to balance it all, and like you were saying, it was either your health or your business, how did you figure out, or have you figured out, like, how to balance it? And what are some of the things you do?
Yeah. So this actually goes back to when baby number 6 was coming along. I had to be on bed rest about 6 weeks before he was born, and then another 6 to 8 weeks after he was born. So you're adding it up in your head. That's 4 months. And at the beginning of that year, so he was born in April, at the beginning of the year, my sister-in-law actually said to me, you know what, you should become at that time it was called True Colors. You should become a True Colors facilitator. And I'm like, what's that? So she kind of told me it's about, because I was already a Myers-Briggs facilitator and trainer. And I was also some other personality things. And she said, it's a personality really easy to use that you could probably use with your leaders.
Okay.
Like, oh, cool. So I went in January, Prego with number 6, and took this course. And true to my personality, I never even went to a workshop. I just decided to be, a facilitator.
Right.
And I took it and I used it that year. So when I was on bed rest, I'm like, I don't want to lose my business. So if you're in any kind of direct sales or network marketing businesses, a lot of times if you're not doing the top tier stuff for leadership, they remove your leadership. You lose your team. And I had already rebuilt my team several times, like 3 times, like when I went through my divorce, when I went having new babies and things. So I didn't want to lose that paycheck.
Right.
And so I thought there's got to be a way I can do this. And so I implemented personality dimensions that year. This was the year 7 I was with this particular company. And I didn't do it traditionally. I mean, if this was COVID way back then, because back then we didn't have the internet, we didn't have Zooms like this or StreamYard or any of these cool tools. I basically had my phone and my personality dimensions. So what I did, I had about 60 leaders at that time, and I sent out by mail their assessment. They sent it back to me, and then I really did it through the phone. Every day I had a strategy in place. So I didn't go, bat-ass crazy in my bed going, what am I going to do all day? Because so I had my phone, I had my Rolodex of people. So I called 2 past customers, 2 current hostesses, and then I worked with my leaders with the personality dimensions. And I did that for 6 months. And then it just kept working so well. I continued doing it into September, October, November, our busy season. Mm-hmm. And that year, I actually won a national award here in Canada with that company. And I had increased my business by 148%.
Wow.
So then people ask me,
what did you do?
How did you do that? And I'm like, and I felt like a hot mess that year. Like, I really did. I wasn't doing my monthly training calls. And at that time I was all over BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba with those 60 leaders. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't going out and doing trainings because I couldn't. I wasn't doing regular hostess parties. There were a lot of catalog parties, and I had 3 assistants that I actually had go out and collect things for me. And I wasn't doing, I just felt very untraditional that year.
Yeah.
And a hot mess because of having a new baby number 6 and aligning everything. And yet when my business increased by that, I'm like, what did I do differently? And it was introducing the personality dimensions into my leadership. That really was the game changer.
Wow. So let's talk about a little bit, because I know a lot of people, we have a lot of obstacles because life can happen to us like it did with you. And you just made it a point, first and foremost, that I noticed you figured it out. Okay, this is what I'm given. You didn't just sit there and wallow in it like, I'm not going to be able to do my business. You figured it out and figured it out in a way that you could do it in the capacity that you were in. That's first and foremost. Secondly, I noticed that you didn't treat everyone. It wasn't a cookie cutter approach to how you dealt with your downline or even your customers, based on this knowledge that you had just gotten from the personality tests. You were able to interact with people based on their unique personality and then help them thrive where they are. So they were able to use their God innate gifts on growing their business. And I'm sure that was very instrumental on you having the success that you had, because typically when we're in direct sales, and I'm sure you would agree to this, most of the time you see an outgoing extrovert person that is top of their company, right? Exactly. Rah, rah. And the people that are not that way, they feel like they have to make themselves that way to be successful. So it sounded like you made it a point to let people really resonate and use the gifts that they were innately given and grow their business their way. Can you share? Is that pretty much how it went down?
That's how it went down. Absolutely. So what I found so I continued with that company for 2 years. And I remember in that 2 years being like, the year after I won that top award, and people were asking me, I'm like, okay, like this is what I did differently. And so the company actually flew me all across Canada, which was kind of fun.
I'm sure.
And I got VIP treatment of going in and doing sales and leadership training. And I introduced, again, to a lot of the top leaders in that business across the country, personality dimensions. And it really honed in just exactly what you're saying, that each person is unique, and you're a blend of all 4 different personalities. If you've ever done personality testing or things like that, which a lot of people have done,
Right.
they know themselves if you've done it. Right. However, the disconnect, and this is what I love teaching now. So after I was in there, still with that company for 2 years, I remember sitting down with the president of the company and being, when you're in top leadership with companies, you have to sign non-disclosure agreements that you cannot teach that training outside of the company, which I get. You're with those companies, you're a top leader, and I'd still say 90% of the companies, they may not say this, but once you level up more and more and more, the company wants you to be even more invested with them.
In the company, right.
Yeah, which is understandable. And they don't want you teaching like your trade secrets to other people. And so I just had so many other women in Pampered Chef, Epicure, Party Light, other type of businesses coming up to me and asking, like, you just had $1,000 show with 4 bookings. How'd you do that? And so my heart just became, I was called to do more.
Right.
Right. And I sat down with the president of that company and said, I feel that I'm supposed to do more. And she agreed with me. And so it wasn't that I left that company on a negative note at all. It was like, yeah, you're supposed to help more women entrepreneurs figure this out, figure out their life, their balance, their leadership, their business, and to do it in a loving, congruent way versus, I'm losing balance, I'm losing everything, or I just have to rebuild a new team, or I just need to get more of this, and not being congruent to who they are, their authentic sales style.
Yep.
And so I went out and I actually have tested this out now. So I did other jobs too, because I'm like, well, I wonder if this works in like brick and mortar. So I was part of a local, I sold furniture. And then I sold furniture for a big company across Canada. And within 18 months, I was their top salesperson.
Okay.
I sold over $2.3 million worth of product in my little town. And I just used the same principles. Whenever people would walk physically into the furniture store, I'd be, kind of calculating like, which personality am I selling to? Like, who are they? Right. And so this comes around to, we know ourselves really great, but let's think there's the 4 different personalities, the 4 different colors. And if you're one color and Inga is, I'll just say maybe you're perhaps either a gold or a blue or whatever color you are, your color really good and you can relate to other people very easily in your color preference.
Exactly.
However, there's 3 other colors, which is 75% of the other population that maybe you're not really knowing how to speak their authentic sales love language.
Right.
So then that's where I love to bridge that gap. Not only just knowing who you are, your preference in sales and leadership, but actually speaking the other 3 personalities and connecting.
Right. Interesting. Now, I'm curious. Now, when you do that, are you doing that by asking questions and based on how they respond, they identify who they are?
Yeah. So this is actually something that I answer when people take my authentic sales style little workshop. It's like very, very, I've kept it at a really great price point, like $77 for people, just so that they can learn their authentic sales style. And then the other 3, because we all tend to be, and I believe we should be our authentic self. Like whatever your brightest color is, do more of that, because that's you. Like 10 times who you are, and not to be other leaders, because they are probably definitely a blend of the other colors. And then whatever your least brightest color is, I kind of teach and coach in that. Like, how do you relate to that person who's your least brightest color? How do you talk to them so that they are bringing in this versus going this way?
Right.
So there's a lot of different nuances that I like to talk about, because each of the 4 personality colors also can, by the way they dress, by the way they interact, their first response to you can be very big key indicators of the 4 different colors.
Interesting. Okay. Well, then that explains how you were able to do it. And I guess you talked about it in 2 ways. And I guess that's why you brought up the technology aspect of it, because I guess when you were doing the furniture, this was more in person interaction.
Right.
And then when you were talking about it, when you were bedridden, it was more voice interaction, where you were listening to it based on, I guess, maybe the cues you got from their deflection in their voice, what they said, that kind of thing. Is that true?
Yeah, exactly. So over the phone, when I was connecting to like past clients or past hostesses, as I would be speaking to them on the phone, I would kind of they'd be giving me key indicators. So for very, very simple. So with each of the 4 colors, each one of them has key indicators. So if you're talking to a blue personality, and I know that there's different color coding and things like that. So I'm just going to be speaking to what my colors are. So there's an orange personality, there's a blue personality, there's the gold personality, and there's the green.
Okay.
So those are the 4 colors that I work with. So say I'm talking to someone and they just really want to connect on a personal level. They're asking, so the conversation with them would be like, how's your date going? Do you have a few minutes to talk to me? Their response gives me one of my first key indicators of which type of personality I'm talking to. So a gold personality would be like, oh yeah, great. I have like about 5 minutes, and then I have other stuff. They're schedulers. That's right. Gold personality. The blue personality would be like, oh, wonderful. I'm so happy that you phoned. And they would go into a story right away. Blues, they love to engage and relationship build.
Chatty Cathy, chatty Carl.
Exactly. The chatty Cathy is probably a blue personality. And then the greens would be like, well, why are you phoning me? That'd be their first thing. Why? Okay, I'm talking to a green. So I have to give them the big picture of why I'm phoning them and reaching out to them. And so, and then the other color, which is orange, is like, oh, I'm so glad you phoned me. And yeah, I have a couple minutes right now. I do have to run. But yeah, tell me what you have going on. So that higher energy, that's orange.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't heard of the colors before. I've heard of the DC, the DISC.
Yeah. So the DISC one is, I believe that's promoted by Tony Robbins. And again, a lot of top leaders use those programs, but unless you're actually in Tony Robbins' inner circle and can afford that, that's where you then he really builds on the personalities and doing sales through that. Not everyone can afford to have Tony Robbins in their
No, back. Not everyone can. What you say? That's where I'm here.
Which I love Tony Robbins, and I've actually been part of several of his programs, so I know it quite well.
Awesome. Well, I know before you told us, you told me, well, let me say this before. Do you have any final thoughts that you wanted to share with us?
Well, I think that this all goes back to balancing. Like, how can you do the balancing act? Like, how can you use even personality dimensions for motherhood, your business, and then kind of keeping, for me, it was the health balance, right?
Yeah.
And so, we've used it with all 6 of our kids. Because even as our kids are grown, so when we got together, my current spouse, he had his 2 boys and I had my 2 kids, and then we had the 2 together. And I said to him, obviously with baby number 6 is when I took the personality dimensions. And I've also been a big proponent of, I've done other top top leadership skills and paid to be part of other programs. And this one I just found really, really simple because we could really integrate it into not only with my coaching clients and with my leadership clients and people who wanted to learn authentic sales. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and you have a business and you have sales, it's a great little 2-hour intro for $77. Learn your authentic sales style and be introduced to the other 3. But for even our family, we've used it. And each of our children I've had taken their personality. There's like a child and youth one. And it's so helped to, even for them, that in our last 2 children, when we were raising them, we really honed in on what are your skill sets in your personality, and encourage them to be more of that. Because I think in our society and even in different businesses, people are like, oh, I see this top leader, so I'm going to do exactly what she's doing.
Right.
And she's a different personality blend than you.
Right.
And then we had decided with our younger 2 children that we were going to do it a little bit differently, that we were going to praise them more for where they excelled and where their brilliance lied.
Right.
And be, meh. We see that that's probably areas you could work on, but that's up to you in your own personality to choose how you're going to raise that. And so it was just a different upbringing for our younger 2.
Interesting. And I'm sure that they appreciated that too, because you basically, like you were saying, you were praising them for what they did well, and then gave them the latitude to kind of figure out whatever they were having a struggle with, that they were going to be able to figure out on their own and do it their way, not the way that you would think they would do it.
Yeah. And I think like the last thing I would impart to people too is the fact that, you have wonderful skill set for your top personality, what I call your brightest color. And with that top skill set, each one of them values different things. Blues value relationship building. They're not attached to money, by the way, blues. So if you have blues on your team or you are a blue yourself, just give yourself grace that for you, you can have authentic sales conversations, but they're in different ways. And money isn't the outcome. And then for greens want knowledge, more and more knowledge. My husband is a power engineer, and he's always taking learning is his MO.
Right.
I'm an orange. I want freedom. I want freedom to do my business when and how, and a 9 to 5 never worked for me. So even though I love that furniture job, 18 months was enough.
Right.
But I learned so much out of it. And then the gold personalities, they want structure and actually what and how to be told to do things. So each personality has high values. And when you work out of who you are and not try to be someone else, that is literally when your teams explode, your business explodes, your being able to relate to clients explode. But as you go into leadership, so I also teach my leaders, what are your team? What colors are they? How can now you authentically serve in your leadership skills to those 8 new team members you brought in? So I always take it the one step further. But a great starting point is definitely learning your authentic sales style and personality. I have my kitty in the background.
Yes.
She's stealing the show. I hate it when they do that. But yeah, learning your authentic sales style and personality, which is super, super fun. And then I teach people, as you are now building out your leadership team, have them do it and then work with me so I can help you build out to do what I did in that year by increasing my business by 148%, which I focused on the leaders. So I started with about 60 leaders who they had maybe 10 to 15 team members. Mm-hmm. And I grew it in that year that those leaders started finding their leaders and growing. And that's where the magic happened.
Oh, sure.
I started the year at 60 leaders that I was developing and didn't even know in my downline. And I took the time to get to really know those who were in my downline personally, who wanted to grow, who didn't. If you didn't, awesome. But those who wanted to move up, I spent the time with them. And I believe our team grew from about 60 leaders that year to close to about 130 leaders.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So really quickly, I know you told me that you had a freebie for us that you wanted to share. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you can go onto my site, jodymaley.com, and in there is access to get into the workshop. It's there, but at the top, it's a little freebie that I call What's Your Values, and how you can use that onto your social media. So
okay.
it's an acronym, so VALUE, and then it's in a nice little gift format so that people can go there and, yeah.
Awesome. Well, you guys can definitely take advantage of that if you want to know what your values are, so you can use that for creating your content and then attracting your people to you. I'm sure that would be a valuable type of freebie that more people would want to use. But thank you so much for your time, Jody. It was great talking to you today and learning about different personality types. And then for those that are watching, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.